Welcome to the Shapeshifter 3D Beginners tutorial. In this tutorial, we will be going over the basic parameters in Shapeshifter 3D. You can start by grabbing one of the stock gradient sources in Reizo Loom and dropping it on an empty clip. Then grab Shapeshifter 3D from the Wire Effects dropdown in your Effects panel and drop that on the gradient clip we just added. Starting from the top, we have controls for blend mode, opacity, an option to use global color for the shapes, lighting controls, camera controls, and shape controls. In the HDR lighting section, we have a toggle to turn the HDR lighting on and off, a blur strength control for the HDR image, as well as controls for HDR strength, HDR hue, HDR saturation, and ambient light intensity. Next, we have the controls for the plugin's 3 separate point lights. These lights have adjustable color, position, and brightness. I'll turn down the lighting contribution from the HDR lighting so you can see the point lights adjustments more clearly. Here you can see how the specular reflections and diffuse lighting update in real time, allowing for on-the-fly customization. Next, we have the camera controls. We can control the camera's pitch and yaw, as well as the camera's distance, allowing us to orbit around our objects. Shapeshifter 3D's performance and level of detail depends a lot on how large your scene is. If your shapes are very small and your camera is zoomed in a lot, you won't be able to get fantastic detail, but your performance should be very nice. If you zoom out and make the shapes bigger, you can get much more detail, just at the cost of some performance. As with any 3D software, managing performance is just one of the parts of working with 3D rendering. Next, we will look at the shape controls for just one of the shapes in Shapeshifter 3D. First, I will zoom out the camera and increase the shape's X, Y, and Z size to make sure we have enough detail to see all of the transforms and deformations. There are 9 different primitive shape types in Shapeshifter 3D. In order, there's the sphere, cube, torus, cylinder, capsule, cone, plane, hexagonal prism, and box frame. Each shape can be mirrored on the X, Y, and Z axis, either separately or any combination of mirrored axes. Each shape can also be scaled independently on the X, Y, and Z axis. You also have full control over each shape's X, Y, and Z positions. As well as precise X, Y, and Z rotations. There is also a nifty feature that allows you to choose whether a shape's mirrored rotation works as one unified object, or if the mirrored shapes rotate in place. If I set the shape's rotation to timeline, you can see that the mirror rotation style changes as I toggle the input on and off. Here it is again, rotating on a different axis. We also have the option to use complex deformations. We can bend the shape in either direction on the y-axis. We can twist the shape. We can skew the shape. And we can also apply 3D noise to the shape with adjustable noise strength, frequency, and type. Because Shapeshifter 3D runs in Resolume, every single one of the parameters available can be automated by the timeline, become audio reactive, or be synced to the project BPM. We also have controls for rounding of shapes, which adds a bevel to the shape's edges. And we can add onioning to the shape. Adding onioning cuts the shape in half and gives it thickness, creating a sort of container out of whichever shape you are using. There is also a toggle for each of the 10 scene shapes, to mark them as active or not. The shape operation type determines whether each shape uses union, subtract, or intersection Boolean types, but we will cover that in a more advanced tutorial. Here you can see that each shape's color is fully customizable. Shapeshifter 3D uses PBR-style materials with separate parameters for roughness and metallic values. The shape blending is part of the Boolean operations and will be covered in a later tutorial. The last parameter is only for shape type 8, the box frame, and controls the frame's thickness. This concludes the Shapeshifter 3D Beginners tutorial. Stay tuned for more advanced tutorials and have fun.